My involvement is primarily in imagining, not so much around the content, but maybe it's the things around the content. Meaning that I've done some work around stereo 3D, for example, in creating dimensional spaces which are immersive in content. But in many cases that it might be how you interact with it. What's the interface for interaction, if it's an interactive experience, or how do you brand things in that? I've done titling and things like that for films. So it's actually immersive branding, you would call it. So anything that's really new, it wants a really simple thing that can introduce it. So often it might be some simple experience. An example in gesture, because gesture is a new kind of interaction. If you look at television interaction, for example, where we're very familiar with up, down, left, right, and we know how to navigate around with things on a remote control. But if you ask the audience to do the same thing with just their hand, that's a very different experience. And it's better to not introduce a very complicated interface, but maybe just one thing. All they do is swipe their hand and it makes a row of pictures move that way. That simple thing, well, people start to get that and they try something else and suddenly they're into it and they're doing everything with it. But the mistake with something really new in technology is to make something really complicated. There are actually many case studies out there for gesture. Some of the more interesting ones, I mean, there are entertainment uses, like television as an entertainment use, which I find really interesting. There are also some uses that we've seen, like with Philips, as an example. Philips, for medicine and for doctors, there are a lot of situations in the medical field where you can't touch things. So you can't just touch a remote control to control a screen, to control a 3D graphic that you're in surgery. You're in a sterile situation. You can't touch anything. So gesture is pretty sensible. I remember seeing with Deutsche Telekom is one company who is introducing glasses that you can wear. So they're just regular looking glasses, and of course they have accelerometer and other things in there that detects your head motion, and so they put stuff in your viewpoint. It's what we're describing, so you're not having to hold up something and do that. In the future, when you don't have to use a separate device, if it's actually part of what you're seeing, this augmented reality information is very interesting when you can dial it in. And think of the web as one massive amount of channels of information. Here, an interface is important. How do you sort of dial in and filter in the stuff that you want and not all the other stuff you don't want? But you can filter in this information and apply it directly. So with full use of your hands doing something else, maybe you're in a sporting event or whatever you're doing, you're not having to do it through a device. You're just seeing that information in your viewpoint, and it's in the space. It's totally immersive information. I would like to see somebody, I'm not sure who that would be, we've had a number of clients. We've worked with EA Games and EA Sports. I think they're doing really interesting work in highly immersive, very real environments, whether you're racing a car or you're playing a football game, whatever that is. I mean, they really are doing some amazing technological immersive experiences. So, and I'd like to see them represent and see what they're thinking about. I'd like to know what's on their roadmap in terms of, say, stereo 3D. I would like to see Keiichi Matsuda, who is just an amazing young gentleman who was a recent graduate of an architectural school here in London, and has produced some amazing visualizations of what the vision of seeing augmented reality, what that would be. Yeah. Right. And maybe a third is a friend of mine who I really like his work. He's an amazing designer and has worked in interactive work, and that is Tom Roop, and he's with Rumpus Room. Used to be with Tomato. It really is about interface, immersive branding, and and how do users filter and control massive amounts of information to create useful channels.